WatchGuard issued a fix for a 9.3 CVSS rated Firebox firewall vulnerability. This is CVE 2025-9242. It was a high severity out of bounds write vulnerability affecting the Firebox T15 and T35 firewalls and could allow unauthenticated remote attackers to execute arbitrary code. It affects devices that are running FireWare OS versions 11.x through 2025.1 and notably persists even if vulnerable VPN configurations have been deleted. Shout out to researcher Btaol, I think. I hope I'm saying that right, Btaol, who is credited with discovering and reporting the issue. Mitigations, there is not a whole lot recommended in the way of workarounds. It says if unable to update immediately, WatchGuard recommends limiting how traffic can access the VPN as a temporary mitigation, but mitigation instructions are to update to patched OS versions as soon as possible. So just start looking at this one. It's been a bit since we've talked about it. Jake, do you want to break down for folks what an out-of-bounds write vuln is and what the risk is if it were to be exploited?
Yeah. Real quick, just before we get into that too, I think this is a good point to highlight the specific piece of advice that they're saying that it persists through deleted VPN configurations. And this is just a good highlight because I feel like we've been seeing these a lot lately and people have been getting recompromised just because they didn't realize oh, I reset a password, I did XYZ, I should be safe. Like if somebody's able to compromise you and say, for example, the VPN is the way that they get in and you disable that. If you've already been compromised, it's possible they could have set up some kind of backdoor access or something along those lines. So just be mindful that you're taking the extra steps, also looking at vendor specific advice, because they may straight out come out this WatchGuard advice. They might just say hey, double check, make sure, even if you did delete this, you got to do these other things. So just make sure you're following all those steps. And the only reason I bring that up is just because I've been seeing it a lot more lately, where you've got to take extra additional steps on top of just closing the initial access or something. So just as a quick heads up. And then as far as the out of bounds write vuln goes, so the best way I can think, or the way I want to talk about how an exploit like this, an out of bounds exploit. So it's all about memory, and the easiest way to think about it, an example would be kind of like a bookcase. Think of your memory allocation, everything your computer can access is all this one bookcase. And then each individual book in that bookcase is different parts of that memory that can be assigned to a program to use for whatever it needs. And basically an out of bounds write is say, for example, in this bookcase, a program asks for memory space and it gets you get book 1 through 10. You can operate inside these books to use this memory and do whatever you need to do and then give it back when you're done. An out of bound write happens when they're assigned those 1 through 10 books, and then all of a sudden they're able to write to book 12 or book 15. They're able to write outside of that space that they're given. And there's many different ways that this can be done, and different things that specific examples of different ways this can be abused and stuff like that. But long story short, it's really just making it so that people, attackers, can take their own code and put it into that overflowed space. So basically you can, that's why they're so dangerous, because you can almost put anything you want in there and have it run. So it can usually lead to things like arbitrary code execution, memory corruption, privilege escalation, remote code execution, that kind of stuff. And it can also cause, I think memory corruption alludes to this a little bit, but it can also cause your machines to just be very unstable. Sometimes when people are developing malware, they get the first inkling that they can do something is they get a system to crash, and then they can eventually refine it more and make it so they can get that space so they can use it and start running code. But sometimes that's as far as they get, and they'll release that as a proof of concept. And that'll be your denial of service or something like that. So it's just as bad. I mean, not just as bad as remote code, but it can be damaging even if they aren't able to run their own code inside that memory.
Yeah, it's
great breakdown.
It's always good to remember too, especially on hardware devices and appliances, they don't have the same traditional like sandboxing that most OSs do, right? So like if you think of kernel mode, right, like there's protections in place. These are very specifically built devices that are built to go like fast and be like very cheap's not the right word, but like very efficient, right? So they just like the incentive isn't there to have extra memory space, right? So if you can get one of these out of bound writes, like you're writing straight into the kernel level of the devices most of the time, and that's how like these backdoors just persist. It's not that they're writing to a config file or whatever. It's like they're straight up writing into memory and they're changing the image of the device to put their code in there. So always good to remember, and that's why a lot of the times, the fixes just update because you have to blow that whole image away.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like you're in these kinds of like overflows and these kinds of attacks, we're working in memory. Usually you're outside. I mean, you're outside of like any kind of like user land space. You're just like at that point you are the system. You do what you want. Like there's nothing really stopping you if you can get that stuff executed.